Okay, we are live on YouTube.
Chet, I have 2 clocks with 2 different times, so you just let me know which clock we're going off of.
Okay, I think we're waiting for a quorum.
Okay.
Good backdrop, Nicole.
Thank you. I used to live in San Francisco.
My wife used to work in San Francisco. She would commute every other week. And so she earned enough frequent flyer miles that she flew me out a couple times. It was really a fun city.
Yeah, it's an amazing city. Nora, I believe we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Well, welcome everyone. It's already October, hard to believe. So this, I call to order the Technical Advisory Committee for October. Mr. Parsons, if you could please go over the statement regarding virtual meetings for us.
I would be happy to. I'm ready when we're not required to do this anymore, but this is our opening statement for electronic meetings. In light of the 2020 COVID-19 virus and current guidance regarding physical distancing to reduce the potential for spread, meetings of the Richmond Regional Planning District Commissions have transitioned to a virtual format. Regional public bodies were granted authority to conduct meetings electronically pursuant to the provisions of Virginia Code Section 2.2-3708.2 and related legislation approved by the General Assembly of Virginia during the period of the Governor's State of Emergency Declaration for COVID-19. While we do not know the exact duration of the current practice of electronic meetings, we will continue to function in this manner until such time as it is deemed appropriate to return to in-person meetings. Staff provided notice of this meeting and the means by which we are virtually gathered to members of the public on October 6, 2020 through electronic posting on the Plan RVA website and email distribution of notice to members, alternates, and known interested parties, including the media. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube. Audio and visual recordings of the meeting and materials will be posted on the Plan RVA website within 48 hours of this meeting. Any members of the public participating as an observer during the meeting today may submit comments or questions at any time prior to or during the meeting via email at rrtpoinput@planrva.org. All comments and questions submitted at this time will be reviewed following the meeting, and to the extent practical, responses will be provided or posted on the Plain RVA website. We ask that members identify themselves first when speaking so we can more accurately record the activities of the meeting. All lines should be muted to minimize additional noise and feedback. You may unmute your line at any time to request acknowledgement from the chair. Does anyone have any questions regarding the process for assuring effective facilitation of this meeting or for how members of the public may participate? I will now ask our clerk to certify we have followed the approved procedures for appropriate notice of this meeting and the means by which we are convening. Nicole, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry about that. I can certify that we have followed the approved procedures, Chet.
Thank you very much. I will now go through a roll call. Please indicate your presence by saying aye when your name is called during a roll call. Anyone who wishes to identify themselves following the roll call of members will be invited to do so. And I know we do have a number of guests this morning.
I'll go ahead and start with Town of Ashland, Miss Amos,
Aye.
Mr. Tucker, Chesterfield County, Miss Smith,
Aye.
Miss Walker,
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman, Mr. Kilduff, Hanover County, Mr. Vidunas,
Aye.
Mr. Flagg, Henrico County, Miss Meidler,
Aye.
Mr. Yor, New Kent County, Miss Leduc,
Present. I'm
Powhatan
here.
Co-
Kelly's here.
Thank you. Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey,
Present.
Mr. Chardine, City of Richmond, Miss Clark, Mr. Bridewell, I think Mr. Bridewell is with us. Not sure, he might be muted. Moving on, Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge. DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky,
Here.
Mr. Sparks. GRTC Transit System, Ms. Torres. Ms. Del Ross. Thought I saw Emily earlier. Moving on, Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Mr. Ariel.
Present.
Right Finders, Ms. Tisdale. Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
Richmond Metropolitan Transportation Authority, Ms. Simmons. VDOT, Ms. McAdory. And Mr. Herman.
Aye.
That concludes the roll call for attendance.
And
Ms. Amos,
so
I believe there are a few people here that may not have been able to unmute in time. If you want to give a few seconds for people to recognize themselves.
Travis
and
Brown
then
here.
Thank you, Mr. Bridewell.
is there anyone else who was not part of roll call? If perhaps if there are technical issues with their sound, they could send a message through the chat.
That would be fine.
Okay, thank you. And So I would like to welcome our newly appointed alternate, Brett Chardine. I don't know if I heard that he was on the call today, but he's with Powhatan County. We're happy to have him officially on board as an alternate. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the TAC meeting agenda. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Not hearing any. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Joe Vaidunas, motion to approve.
Barb Smith, second.
So I have a motion by Joe Vaidunas and a second by Barb Smith to approve the meeting agenda. Ms. Mueller, could you please have a roll call?
Sure. The committee will now be voting on item number 1, approval of today's meeting agenda. Town of Ashland, Ms. Amos.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Vaidunas.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. Smidler.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Leduc.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Mr. Bridewell.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
GRTC, Ms. Del Ross. I'm just going to try and see if she's here. Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Ride Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
And VDOT, Mr. Herman.
Aye.
That concludes roll call for item number 1.
Sorry. Item number 2 is the approval of the September 8th TAC meeting minutes that were included in your packet. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? Or do I have a motion to approve?
This is Tiffany Dubinsky. I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tiffany. Do I have a second?
Sharon Smidler, second.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Tiffany Dubinsky and a second by Sharon Smidler to approve the September 8th, 2020 minutes. Ms. Mueller, could you please have roll call?
Yes, thank you. Town of Ashland, Ms. Amos.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Vaidunas.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. Smidler.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Leduc.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Mr. Bridewell.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Ride Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
And VDOT, Mr. Herman.
Aye.
That concludes roll call for item number 2.
Ms. Amos, if I can interrupt, I know that Adrian Torres and Emily Del Ross have notified on the chat that they were here, but they're both having microphone issues. Nicole, if they try and call in, can you make sure you admit them to the meeting?
Yes, of course.
And also that Tom Coleman indicated that he is here as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is the TAC chairman's report. Unfortunately, due to the governor getting COVID, we had to reschedule the Ashland to Petersburg Trail naming and ribbon cutting ceremony. And so that has been changed to October 21st here in the town of Ashland. And if you haven't gotten information on that, I know that the TPO and Plan RVA have that and can send out the invite. I don't have anything else to share. Well, I will share another Ashland story. The next time I meet with you all, it will be in our new offices at our new town hall. So hopefully when we can meet in person, I'd love to give you a tour. Very excited about it.
Congratulations. That sounds wonderful.
Thank you. It's been a highlight of our COVID, being able to sit here and watch it go up. The next item on our agenda is the RRTPO update. Mr. Parsons.
Thank you very much. I have put on the screen our current work efforts. We just closed on Friday our current survey that was out for vision, goals, and strategies for the long range plan update. So we've had great participation on that. I believe upwards of 800 surveys were completed, but we're waiting on the final numbers, and we're excited about sharing that back with the TAC and the other committees as soon as we have everything tabulated. As Ms. Amos shared, the trolley line is going up, and we're excited about ribbon cutting for the larger trail effort in Ashland. And along with that, the regional bicycle and pedestrian plan is being developed now that will feed into our long range plan update. There are links in the design book or in the agenda packet to a story map that shows kind of where we are with the bicycle pedestrian plan. And you can look at the data that's been collected from each of you and your constituents. Going through the other items of note, the American Planning Association Virginia chapter is happening right now. This week is the virtual conference titled "We'll Get You Moving." I know that GRTC had the keynote yesterday as the conference kicked off, and we're excited about all the participation that's happening with all of our partners throughout the region. We have a couple work groups that are active in meeting, the Vision Zero work group and the public transportation work group. They both met last week and were very productive meetings, and a lot of the work that they're doing are going to feed into eventual considerations for this group as well as the policy board itself. Another work group that is meeting soon is the RSTP CMAC work group. And this is a subcommittee of this body, the TAC, to talk about updating the process for RSTP CMAC scoring, selection, and allocation guidelines. It's been a while since those were addressed in full, so we're excited about the possibility of updating that process and making it more transparent for everyone. The next item on the staff update is the summary of the September 17th CTAC meeting. Ken Lance developed a great summary and report, and that was included for your information. I did want to share a couple more things. The RSTP CMAC application cycle is active right now and closes at the end of the month. I put on the screen the calendar for the process. So existing projects, or the application period closes on the 30th of October. And then we will move directly into project screening with locality and applicant meetings, L&D validation, and eligibility screening. So that's going to extend from probably the 1st of November through the end of December. If anyone has any other questions, Miles Bushing is leading that process and will be happy to address any concerns you might have. I wanted to give an update on the CVTA. Everyone is working very, very hard with that. This afternoon actually is the CVTA TAC, so thank you all for being on the screen with us all day. We're working through the calendar and the schedules to make that happen. And I've got on the screen the agenda that has been posted for that meeting. The main things I wanted to highlight are the work task updates. And those include discussion of the regional project prioritization, the regional public transportation plan. There will be a process update on that today. And then the transit service governance report. There's been a revised scope developed for that, which was either sent out to you last night or this morning for review. There's been a number of edits, and I apologize for the late distribution, but we will have time today to go through that for everyone that's been involved. The other item of note is the Finance Committee meets tomorrow morning, I'm sorry. And the big items on the agenda for that are a number of the things that lead into the operating budget for fiscal year 21, including an agreement for revenue transfers with VDOT, an agreement for support services from Plan RVA that will support the activities and the planning for the CBTA. And then discussions of insurance services, and finally a revised FY21 operating budget. We do have all of our meetings are now posted to the Plan RVA full calendar if you want to check those out. So it not only shows, it shows everything that we do. So TPO, Executive Committee, Policy Board, TAC, all of our work groups, as well as CBTA, the Finance Committee and the TAC, as well as the CBTA itself. And then Plan RVA calendars as well for the activities that are happening with the commission. Finally, virtual meetings. We are now using Zoom full time, and with that, the meetings are live streamed to YouTube on our YouTube channel. So I would recommend and plead with you, if you have not yet, please go to YouTube and search for Plan RVA and subscribe. I sound like a commercial, but if we get 100 subscribers to our channel, then we are able to create a personalized link so that it doesn't have 15 characters and random numbers and letters in it. So that's our next milestone, is so that we can make it more accessible to the public and easy to find. So thank you for that. And we're looking for any comments or suggestions or feedback following the meeting with the use of Zoom and the YouTube live stream. We have started using that as well for the CBTA meetings, and it has gone very well so far. And we're excited about the process and the streamlining that it's done for staff time and staff involvement in logistics behind the scenes. That is all I have for the TPO update. And I think we are able to take any questions or move on with the agenda. Thank you, Ms. Amos.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Parsons?
Nora, I have a question. This is Joe
Go
Vaidemas.
ahead.
Back to the Ashland Trolley Line Trail. Is the Ashland Trolley Line Trail on the same alignment as the Ashland to Petersburg Trail? And what are the from and to? If so, what are the from and to of the Ashland, the Ashland Trolley Line Trail? I'm confused by this.
Are you talking about the name of the trail? It is the same alignment.
Yeah, it's just confusing because there's reference to the Ashland to Petersburg Trail and the Ashland Trolley Line Trail, and
right, it's the same thing. I'm sorry, I probably called it the Trolley Line Trail just because that's what we've been calling it for like 10 years. And then VDOT did their study for Ashland to Petersburg. It is the same thing. And on the 21st, we'll have a new name that we've been trying to say it around here, that we'll all have to get used to. But yes, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think in terms of timeline, Joe, the Trolley Line Trail, that project was a TPO project in cooperation with Ashland and Henrico and Hanover. And that actually started well before the Ashland to Petersburg study did.
okay.
So that was in existence. And then Ashland to Petersburg got started looking at the longer alignment. And the steering committee for Ashland to Petersburg was really deliberate in making sure that there was overlap and that Ashland to Petersburg fit the alignment for the Trolley Line Trail. So it's the one and the same thing, but we're looking at a little bit more detail right now for the Trolley Line portion of the overall segment.
Excellent. And just real quickly, so will this segment that is under construction in Ashland, will that be the first segment of this Ashland to Petersburg Trail to be constructed?
I'll let you answer that, Nora.
Well, I mean, I don't know. There are portions of the trail that are already constructed that are, as part of the planning process, we try to utilize existing infrastructure. But we in Ashland have been working on the Trolley Line Trail for at least 10 years. 12 years ago is one of the first things I talked to Rue and John Hodges about when I started my position, was that Walder Road and turning that into a trail. So for us, it's been around for a long time. And so we're excited about this ribbon cutting of the new portion and the excitement that we're trying to build over the Ashland to Petersburg plan that VDOT did. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It did. I just want to congratulate.
Barb Nelson's here. She probably worked on it too.
I just want to congratulate you. If that is, if you're the first segment to be constructed on this project, because there are a number of applications pending for other segments along this trail. And so it starts, you know, it's going to be the lump sum of the whole, lump sum of the parts to make the whole. So anyway, kudos for getting this done. You're part
Well,
of it.
thank you. Well, thank you to the TPO for helping us fund it. We would not have gotten it done without your funding. So thank you for that. The next item on the agenda is the I-95 RMT Commerce Corridor Access Study. I believe this is a presentation.
It is, and I don't know if Chet wants to make any opening remarks. I do have a desire to share my screen for this. So either, I don't know if you need to give me authority, or if I see an icon at the bottom of my screen that says share screen, maybe that will do it.
Yeah, Paul,
That will work.
You should be able to share your screen from that.
Okay. And I assume since you are hearing me that my audio sounds okay?
It does.
All right, good. So do people see my screen with a picture of the port? All right, great.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you. So this is a presentation that will, if I do a great job, it'll be 10 minutes. Worst case, it'll be 15. But the goal is for me to summarize some work that we've done that's at a draft complete stage. And then the ultimate goal of this presentation is to ask the TAC to support this work and allow us to take it to the full policy board. We want to present it to them as soon as possible, possibly even at their next meeting. So that's the end game of this presentation. By the way, my name is Paul Prideaux. I work for a consulting firm, an engineering firm that's under contract to VDOT for this study. So that's why I'm involved. And but I've been in the industry for a long time, so I know many of you from different sources of work. So what I've decided to do for this presentation is to go through a story map that we prepared for this work. And that's what's on my screen. I'll be scrolling down through that throughout my comments. And that's also available to you. It's on the web. It was in the meeting packet with the agenda. So if you haven't had a chance to look and you want to look later, then that's, of course, easy to find that link in what Chet sent out. So, okay, so I'm going to start scrolling as I comment with this. So this is called the I-95 Richmond Marine Terminal Commerce Corridor Study, Access Study, which is a mouthful, but there's a reason for all of those handles. So like I said, we're not done. It's in a draft stage right now, and that's why we're presenting it to you to give you a chance to comment. So, okay, this is actually a follow-on study. Back in 2017, we did another study that was more regional. It was an economic, industrial, freight type study of the Richmond metro area with the Deepwater Port and the Commerce Corridor as kind of a hub. And we did a much larger study of the entire region to talk about existing and future opportunities to grow industrial activity and commerce. And that study, which is all posted on the TPO's website and available, that study had a lot of recommendations, maybe 50 or something. So several of those recommendations were specifically around our study area now, the Commerce Corridor, Bells Road Interchange, Richmond Port, the Deepwater Port. So we decided with this second effort to drill down on those recommendations, those handful of recommendations, that were in this study area and to develop those more. So that's what this is about. The way we funded this work is Barb Nelson was successful in getting some RSTP money that would allow us to do this study, and we've not used it all, so there's still money left. And so we already have ideas of what we could do next. It's not enough money to build anything, but it's definitely enough money to develop ideas and to get them in a position where they could be supported politically and to try to make a case for projects for funding reasons. So, all right, I'm gonna keep scrolling here. So shortly, okay, so the end game of this study will be to deliver short-term and long-term transportation recommendations that address safety, access, freight movements in this area. So we have a collaborative effort. We've used these icons you see on the screen. We've had a stakeholder group that's been with us throughout this work that we've done for about a year. And they include those entities you see here, but I'll list some names. For example, from the city, we had Dirana and Mike Sawyer involved. From Chesterfield, we had Barb Smith involved. Henrico County, Todd Ewer was the representative. And Port of Virginia, Barb Smith, Melissa Fulleron. We even had FHWA join us, Ivan Rucker, Jose Granado. From VDOT, it was people like Liz McAdory and some of the district staff like Jason Williams, Rob Vilak, and Jake was involved as well. Finally, with the TPO staff, Chet was our main person, but Sulab was also involved in the technical aspects as well. So just a shout out to those. We appreciate all of their help. This is the study area that you see on the screen right now on the left side. So it's all around, it's south of Maury Street interchange on I-95, but north of Chippenham. So it's in that little box, that polygon that you see there. It encompasses the Bells Road interchange and Commerce Corridor and the port and Walmsley and Route 1 and areas like that. So that's our little study area for this work. We are very aware of the land use distribution in the area. The predominant type of land use is industrial for this study area. So the port is a key part of this whole process. Barbara, I think she has an agenda item next to talk about the port and its growth. I'm not going to steal her thunder, but the point of this is the port is not the only driver, but it is an important driver of why we did this study, and it's a hub for a lot of growth that is expected. So the bottom line is there has been and will be more growth at the port that affects more than just the port, because there are spinoff businesses, industries that are nearby that the port, that there are synergies that are had with the port. Like any transportation study, we looked at safety, we looked at congestion. I'm not going to go into the details, but we looked at our study area. You see it coming up here on the graphic. We looked at crash history, how things compare to statewide average, which is greater, by the way. We looked at the density of crashes. We looked at delay concerns where the peak hours are much more delayed than the off-peak hours. When we started coming up with ideas, we needed some type of test, some type of way to compare ideas. So if you look at what's on the screen right now, you see 13 different intersections. We looked at many of those intersections to judge the effectiveness of ideas that we had. And speaking of those 13, here's an example of how those 13 intersections are expected to grow between now and the year 2045. That is, thank you, Sulab. Those graphs, those bars that show growth at those intersections, growth in traffic demand, that comes from the regional travel forecasting model that the TPO uses and staff uses for your long range planning exercise. So it's not something we built specifically for this study. We used that product that's on the shelf. So you see growth there. You see significant growth forecasted at each of those intersections in the future. Okay, besides just sheer growth in volume demand, there's also concern. We also had concerns about queuing spillback, queuing at some of these intersections. These are just a few. We had the information for everything, but if you look at this graphic that's on the screen, that's in 2045 using the model. Those are the types of queues, maximum peak period queues we predict using the model in the future in this area. So if you look at those yellow arrows, the length of those arrows, imagine traffic backing up that far if we don't do anything, if we just leave everything like it is. The yellow arrows happen to be AM, morning, and the red arrow is PM. So a very busy study area there as we go forward. Okay, so we built our case for that there is something to be addressed. And like I said earlier, we developed short-term and long-term ideas. So if this graphic, you see 1 through 7, those are the locations of 7 different ideas, 7 different improvement ideas. I'll go through these relatively quickly. I've also got long-term ideas to follow. I'll go through these relatively quickly, and if there are questions, we'll go back to these and talk about them. So the short-term ideas are meant to be lower cost things that can be done without as much project development, permitting, a lot of right-of-way acquisition, things like that. Short-term concept number 1. Many of you might be aware of this. This is the idea to construct. Oh, by the way, this study is not just about the arterial streets. It's also looking at the interstate itself. So I-95, the interchange at Bells Road, and the city streets that are in that area. So short-term concept number 1 is proposing to construct an auxiliary lane that starts at the southbound, that starts at the Bells Road interchange, goes southbound, and then terminates at Chippenham Parkway. So if you recall, there is such a thing built on the northbound side. This idea, this southbound auxiliary lane, would be a 4th lane on I-95 southbound between Bells Road and Chippenham. So that's a very common idea in urban congested areas. There's a lot of southbound queuing, a lot of southbound delay and congestion on I-95 every afternoon. So this will help tremendously with that. So that idea had some traction this year during the smart scale season. I don't believe it went forward, but it definitely got a lot of discussion. So we do think that's a good idea still for future consideration. All right, that was number 1. Some of these we combined them, these concepts, we combine them because they made sense or they might have synergy. So short-term concepts 2 and 3. Now we're back on the arterial streets. So this graphic on the left is Commerce Road. There's Subway restaurant is on the bottom right. McDonald's is off the screen to the bottom left. This is where Bells Road connects to Commerce. So there are 2 parts of this. Those blue arrows represent the idea that we could take the lanes, the Bells Road approach to Commerce, and we could make double rights. Instead of a single right, single left, it could be double rights, and the left turn would be shared with one of those rights. Double rights coming out of Bells Road. And then also down on Commerce, you see where what was a 2-lane cross section southbound on Commerce would now be 3. We would use some of the space in the median to add a 3rd lane that would go all the way down to the Bells Road interchange to Walmsley. So that's the idea represented by concepts 2, 3. All right, concepts 3, 4 is, again, it combines 3 and a new thing we call 4. This is more of the same idea. We could take, now if you look on the left side, you still see Bells Road coming into Commerce, but you see a little bit further to the north where there's a stoplight icon up there. That is coming down from what's called the Bells Road Access Road. We could also consume some of the median and make a 3rd lane southbound on Commerce, shown in gray there. That would bundle with the one to the south we talked about a minute ago and create more capacity for storage. So when the signal goes green, you can move more vehicles through that area. Both of these improvements on this screen right now could all be done within right of way by using median for that purpose. So that's that was what was that? 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now we're down further south. So this is a combination of two ideas. Whoops, I just scrolled. Let me get back here. Here we go. So now on the left side of the screen, you see the intersection of Walmsley Boulevard, and those are the ramps to the interchange. So at the very top, on the left, at the very top, that signal is that signal that you go through to get onto the interstate. So a little bit of a complicated idea here, but any big multi-lane signalized intersection has a cap, has a limit of how much traffic it can process. And left turns are always a challenge because everybody else has to stop. So anytime you can take left turns and displace them or move them or allow them to happen somewhere else, you've conserved green time for other movements. So this is an idea to move some of the left turns downstream on Commerce to a new intersection. So you see those blue arrows. So there are a couple of things happening there. And there's also a relocation of the on-ramp to 95 southbound. So, but that construction that you see represented in this graphic, basically, in short, would allow that signal to operate a lot more efficiently and would turn the clock back, 10 or 20 years in terms of service of that intersection at Walmsley and Commerce, because we've taken some of the movements and we've moved them down one block and allowed them to happen outside of the limits of that signal. That's a simplified answer to that question. So, okay, I'm gonna keep going. This is the last short-term concept, then we'll talk about long-term. Short-term concept number 7. Now, if you look on the left side, you see a graphic of the off-ramp, on-ramp elements of the Bells Road interchange. So that whole interchange, when you come down to Commerce, it's always a challenge there. There's some difficult weaving. There's a lot happening, tractor trailers and autos trying to jockey around to find where they want to be at that intersection that's at the lower left corner of that graphic over here. Now, this is the intersection of Walmsley and Commerce right here. So that's a kind of a problem area. I should be using my pointer more now, and certainly more so in the future. You may remember a Q graphic I showed with a red Q. So this work that you see is a way to clean up that approach. We pull a lane over here and we give a little stop condition, and then allows people more space to get lined up and get in the correct lane that they want to get in. So there's not so much competition happening right here. So it's nuanced, but it is a better flowing, better functioning valve, to use that word. And we tested all these things with operational software like Vism. So that's idea number 7. So let me keep on rolling. So we have a matrix here. I'm not going to get into the details, but we took each of those short-term concepts. We described them. We did rough planning level cost estimates. We thought about utility and right-of-way impacts. We described how much, if at all, it would help either the interstate or the local roads. So the way you read this, and like I said, I'm not going to go through each line, but darker colors are better. So darker colors are better. Now there's no one alternative that has all good news and no bad news. It's all, everything has trade-offs, everything has pros and cons. But these are the the results of that pass that we did. So bottom line, drum roll, is that the core working group, we have that whole stakeholder group that we talked about, but what we call the core working group is just a few of us. It's me, it's Chet, it's Liz McAdory, and it's Barbara Nelson. We're kind of the study team, and then others have been watching and commenting on everything we've done. But the core working group recommends concepts S1, S3, and S7 as the most cost-effective improvements in the short term. So that doesn't mean the others don't have any value. It just means considering everything, constructability, ease of implementation, cost, benefit, S1, S3, and S7. And you know, you might have already forgotten what those were, but just you know, S1 was the auxiliary lane. S3 was that median conversion to a travel lane. And S7 was cleaning up, dressing up that ramp termini for the interchange. Okay, I know that was a lot, but I'm going to keep my foot on the gas here. Long term. So, like I said, those were short term. Now we've got long term concepts that would need more lead time to develop and more proof of concept, cost estimating, engineering, maybe right of way, environmental, all those things that wouldn't be as present, as heavy of a lift for the short term. So here's a concept, long-term concept number one. Imagine at Walmsley, Bells Road Interchange and Commerce, imagine a roundabout. So like I mentioned earlier, that's a tricky, difficult intersection as a conventional intersection. So as the volumes grow and grow, it will be more and more difficult to manage that intersection. So we tested a roundabout there, and there's actually some positive news there. That could be a very effective solution. So it's kind of a bold idea, but not really. If you think about around the world, around the country, you see this. So that is an idea to construct a roundabout there. There would be some right-of-way slivers, but nothing really massive, no big property takes or anything like that. So something to think about there as a roundabout. Long-term, okay. The next three ideas have something in common. So before I even go to number two, I'm going to go back to a graphic to make a point. All right, how about this graphic on the right side of the screen? Here's the point I would hope all of you would hear with me. So the way the Bells Road interchange works right now, it's kind of an oversimplification to say it's a T interchange, but it's not a full interchange, right? It only provides service to one side. It only gets you to and from Commerce, right? You cannot go east from the interchange. The problem is there is a lot of existing and future land use and development opportunity and industries that are on the east. Like on the bottom right of that graphic, you see the port down there. But there are many other businesses off the screen to the top, auto auctions and petroleum companies and fabrication. And so that's Deepwater Terminal. I'll use my pointer. That's Deepwater Terminal Road right here. So if you're on Deepwater Terminal and you want to get to the interstate, which most of the people and the business activity from Deepwater Terminal is to and from the interstate, you have to come up here and you'd make this cryptic left and you go under the interstate, and then you get on Commerce, you make another left and you suffer down Commerce, and you make another left and you get onto the interstate here at Bells Road. So these next three ideas attempt to further develop that interchange to allow better service to the east. All right, thank you for bearing with me on that. Long-term concept number two. So now we're zoomed in. So the Bells Road interchange is on the left side, is here. And this is Deepwater Terminal Road. Right now, there's no connection here. Imagine if you could get from Deepwater Terminal through some mechanism like this, imagine you could just get right over to the interchange. That's a pretty good deal. Like if you think about this white car, look at this white vehicle, if you can see that. If that white vehicle came from, let's say, the port, which is down here, the port's down here. If that white vehicle came from the port, they would have had to just travel a mile of multiple left turns to go all the way around to get back to where they are sitting right there. A mile and many left turns, signals, congestion. If some type of connection was here, it's like 150 feet. I mean, it's just right there. So think about the benefit of on time, just in time delivery, and the trucks and the port and the other industries there that are trying to get to and from the interstate. Not only is it better for them, it also takes all of that deep water terminal traffic off of commerce. So it's just everyone wins from that. Now, that doesn't mean this is easy to build. You know, this roundabout and this connection would have to be elevated. There's a railroad track under here. So it's not without challenges, but that's why we're brainstorming these ideas. So concept number 2 is a roundabout installed on Deepwater Terminal and a little connector over here to allow you to get to these northbound and southbound ramps. And here's how you would get off of northbound off ramp and slip over here. So that has some pros and cons. Technically, this is not one that we recommend because of challenges. I'll tell you that as a sneak peek. Here's one that we actually do like better. Long-term concept number 3 is another technique for the same idea, to get people from, here's Deepwater Terminal Road is right here. To get people from that road to the interstate, it's just from an engineering profile, grades standpoint, it's just a better, a little bit more elegant solution to get people over to the interstate interchange. So long-term concept number 3 is there. Here's another one coming up, which is, this is a combo. Imagine 3 and 1 together. That would allow people to leave the Deepwater Terminal Road area and then go south on 95 easily without going up and down Commerce and doing that whole dogleg thing we talked about. So this is actually, I'll just say, this is what we think is the best of the ideas, is this 1 + 1 = 3 type thing. So here's another idea that's, I think, too complicated, is long-term concept number 4. Just another idea, not roundabouts, just a different style of trying to accomplish the same goal. Okay. All right. Now, those were I'm almost done here, by the way. Those were the long-term ideas to try to enhance the value of that interchange and to enhance the value of Deepwater Terminal Road and all the businesses that are on it, and to bring benefit to the commerce corridor indirectly, because they will never see those vehicles again. So, all right, then we had a couple of things. The group asked us, they said, well, we've got the hood up. Here are a couple of other ideas that we'd like to see if you could poke around and learn about and to reveal some more information. So we called them local connector ideas. Whether they're short or long is kind of up to interpretation. But some of our stakeholders asked, hey, what about finishing that connection of Walmsley that was never built 50 years ago or something? You know, Walmsley Boulevard is over here. That's labeled Walmsley. It stops at Jeff Davis, and then it runs over here and stops about here. And this is Walmsley right here, and it stops about here. So at one point, probably before any of us were around, someone said, well, maybe we could connect them at some point. So this idea is, what if they were connected? So, you know, we did some checking. We used, with Sulab's help, we used the regional model to test what would happen if you open that connection. And, you know, as you might imagine, everything rearranges. It's not bad or good. I mean, everything rearranges, because now all of a sudden it took volume off of Bell's. It took a little bit of volume off of Chippenham. You know, it kind of rearranged the drainage pattern in here for traffic. So there are pros and cons to it. We didn't end up recommending it, as we're not saying it's bad. It's an idea that needs a champion. And so if somebody, we revealed the effects of that in our work, and it's in the technical report as well. But we decided to hold back on recommending it just until it has more traction or somebody has interest in it as a champion. Last one, this is the last one, and then we'll wrap up, is local connector concept number 2. All right, some of you know this, but most of you probably don't. probably one of the most valuable things in transportation world is a crossing of an interstate under or over, because they're so rare and they're so expensive. And if you have one, it's valuable. So you may not know, but there's actually an underpass of 95 right there on this graphic. You see this dotted line. That's the port. This is 95. Here's Commerce Road. There's actually an underpass, and it's shown in these pictures. I'm circling. There's an underpass under the interstate. Now it's private and it's not developed as a road, but it begs the question, hey, could that be developed so it can carry at least private traffic, and it could help the port with logistics? And right now the port is a cul-de-sac. It just has one entrance and one exit. It just has the one connection. If anything happens, if that gets blocked, or just trying to manage freight and off hours traffic, it's probably limits their ability to grow. And Barbara could comment more when she speaks if she wishes, but that would be a clever idea if that could be developed to allow the port to have a second way to manage material, like containers, and maybe there'd be a drop lot over here somewhere where people, because the port's not open 24 hours a day, so maybe people could drop their boxes at 2 a.m. and then they could be shuttled in the next day after that trucker goes away, and all of that. So there's some cleverness there without, the most expensive thing is getting a bridge, which is already there. So now that underpass is being used right now by others like DuPont and other industries. There are some pipelines in there and stuff. So it's not without some challenges, and I've got those listed here, some things that would have to be done. But that's certainly something that is less of a construction challenge and more of maybe just kind of a legal and a property rights of way challenge. Okay, so the core working group, remember the core working group, we recommend 1 and 3 for the long term. Remember, 1 was the roundabout, 3 was that interchange modification that had those 2 loops. I know that sounds ambiguous, but 1 and 3 as the long term, we recommend those for further study. And local connector concept number 2, which is that underpass I just talked about. So these are the things, I've got a summary thing down here. These are the things that our study team has recommended for this, for the results of this work that could use bit more development. Some of the short terms could be candidates for smart scale pretty quickly. They don't need a whole lot more development, but the long terms they would need maybe NEPA, environmental, maybe an interchange modification study with FHWA, and more engineering to make sure they would fit from a vertical standpoint, things like that. We did a little bit, but they could use more. So these are the 5 ideas that we recommend that have value and could go forward with appropriate support. So the idea of this whole presentation is we would like for the TAC to be able to ask questions, but ultimately we hope you will pass a motion to let us present something like this to the policy board and keep this momentum going. So that's it. There's some next steps down here. I don't know if I said it earlier, we have prepared a draft technical report for this work. It's in QA/QC right now, being reviewed by a smaller group. So that will be ready soon. So there's a lot more than this story map for our work. So I think that's the end of my presentation. I don't know, Chad, if you want to take it from here, or however you want to proceed in terms of asking the TAC for questions or comments.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation, and I can tell you put a lot of effort into this, and thanks to the work group. Do we have anyone who has any questions for Paul or comments they'd like to share?
This is Travis Broadwell. I just like to appreciate all the work that Paul's done, looking out for the local streets as well as the interstate. But I would like to talk with you, Paul, in more detail on some of this. Thank you.
Very good.
And do I have anyone else have comments? I don't have many people on a camera, so I can't tell if you want to chime in. So Chet, what's being requested of us today is to approve a motion to recommend adoption of the access study to the RRTPO policy board. Is that correct?
That is correct. Assuming that, I mean, I haven't heard any red flags going up this morning. Paul and his team would develop a report based on the story map, and that would go forward, a combination of the two, to the policy board.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, do I have anyone who would like to make a motion to recommend adoption of the I-95 RMT Commerce Corridor Access Study to the TPO board for their review?
This is Barb Smith. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Barb. Do I have a second?
Travis Broadwell, second.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Barb Smith and a second by Travis Bridewell. Ms. Mueller, if you could please take roll call.
Yes, ma'am, I'm ready. Town of Ashland, Ms. Amos.
Aye. Aye.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Vidunas.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. Smidler.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Leduc.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Mr. Bridewell.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
GRTC Transit System, Ms. Torres.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Ride Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
And VDOT, Mr. Herman.
Aye.
That concludes the roll call for item number 5.
Thank you, Ms. Mueller. We're going to continue the theme with an update from Barb Nelson on the Port of Virginia. So, turning it over to you.
Hey, good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes, okay, good. So glad to be with you, and thank you for the action on the access study. It's been a long time in the making, coming out of the 2017 TPO approved corridor plan. Really appreciate that on behalf of the port. The port, as many of you or most of you know, have been working with the TPO since 2008 to create economic activity and opportunity for the region that keys on the Richmond Marine Terminal. And in 2016, a very important long-term lease agreement was executed that followed a short-term 5-year lease. And so that lease runs through 2056, sorry, didn't do the math right. And in FY20, you know, we continue the trend of significant positive year-over-year growth with a balance of our imports and our exports. Between fiscal years 19 and 20, we had approximately 22% growth at RMT, which means that over 41,000 boxes transactions occurred through the terminal, and that removed over 60,000 trucks from the I-64 corridor. And the growth at RMT is projected to continue to grow. As you have time to go back and delve more into the story map, you'll see that over the next 15 to 20 years, the total volume of containers moving through Richmond is expected to grow to over 100,000 or 120,000 containers a year. And so fixing the interchange that was, you know, part of the Richmond-Petersburg Turnpike and not geometrically designed to handle the size of traffic or the type of containers that we have going through there today is critically important. In addition, just as a tag on to what Paul was mentioning, in addition to exploring smart scale for some of these projects, we would also be looking to bundle, potentially work with our regional partners to bundle, and statewide partners to bundle some of these projects together to compete for larger federal grants as well. Tune in Wednesday if you haven't already been tracking the news over the weekend, but there is some exciting news that will be officially announced by USDOT on Wednesday regarding a very large federal grant for the port. And we anticipate trying to bring that same resource commitment to making investments in the Richmond area. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that we've had over a decade of relationship in working with the TPO, from the launch of the barge service to procurement of a crane that has made the growth opportunity across the region, both from direct economic impact as well as job creation of reality. Who would have thought, that a simple barge could do that much? But we're all really excited that it's happened. The TPO approved a project with RSTP funds several years ago that was looking at wharf improvements and rail improvements inside of the gate, as well as exploring why a section of pavement was failing, and then the proposal was to repave that area. Well, as we got into a closer inspection, we realized that the bulkhead was failing, and these are some slides of the damage that was there. We have in this area, and I'll be able to show you in just a moment some of the repairs, but there are two cofferdams that are in the north end of the wharf, and there were 30 steel rod tiebacks into the steel pilings that of the 30, 19 of them had failed. And so we were at risk of this north end of the bulkhead stressing and potentially, collapsing. And so we needed to make some emergency repairs. And the TPO was really stepped up and found through a lot of closeout funds, additional funding to solve that funding gap. Next slide, please. So this slide and then the following slide, but stay on this one for just a second, show you the progress work at the bulkhead. The area that's grassy, when you have time, you can zoom into that area and you can see the tiebacks to the bulkhead and how it's been reinforced. Next slide, please. And then that is the cofferdam area where the repairs have been made and it's been covered. This project is in a nearly, it's nearly ready to advance to final financial closeout. Few items are being wrapped up. But what's important for you all to understand and for our expression of thanks is that the north end of the wharf is the only area that has the capacity from a stress perspective to work the crane that works the barge. So although we may have many, many linear feet of frontage along the waterfront, this area was critical to the operation of that intermodal exchange of cargo. And absent the TPO support and investment, it would have been much more challenging to close that gap. So thank you for that. Next slide, please. This is another project that I just wanted to highlight to you all. And again, just to reconfirm our appreciation of the region's support. for the Richmond Marine Terminal. Again, we can come back at a future meeting and talk about the economic impact over the past 5 years, since we're hitting our first 5-year limit on the long-term lease. But the drop lot and gate improvements, this is a project that was selected as a TPO project in 2018 and received about 2.25 million. And what it does, this proposed improvement, which is at 90% design right now, and so it has been moving forward well. It will reduce site processing time and congestion time on on Deepwater Terminal Road. The dark gray cell on the upper right-hand corner of the slide shows a proposed drop lot. And what that would do is extend the hours of the port without adding labor. It would be an unmanned gate. There would be security provided there. But what it would allow shippers to do is to bring in boxes, drop them there, and then have a coordinated exchange between that secure drop lot and the gate. The project also proposes to make a number of gate improvements. One on the outbound side of the gate, it will accommodate project cargo or dimensional cargo or out of gauge cargo, that which is larger and not containerized. And so all of those investments at the gate, as well as the drop lot, come to about the $2.25 million project. Though with many projects, as you advance from concepts through engineering, and we are at 90% engineering now, complete, we have identified some cost overruns that were not anticipated. Well, they're not overruns yet, so it's just an estimate. We'll manage the overrun, but we have identified a delta of between $700,000 and $1.2 million for the project. And we're working now to identify ways to close that gap. But in addition to the 2.5 million that has been provided through the TPO RSTP funds, the port has also brought $1.5 million to this project for gate enhancements associated with Customs and Border Patrol and protection related enhancements and improvements. And so the total investment between the funds that we've received from the TPO to date, combined with the port funds, is about $3.75 million. So I just wanted to close by saying we appreciate the long-term relationship that we've had to create this intermodal exchange opportunity for the benefit of outside of the gate, as well as across the entire region. In the previous presentation, when Paul was talking about the underpass under 95 and effectively the opportunity to create a second back gate for the port, I think it's important to know, and again, as you drill more into the details of the study that we've done, two very large customers, Brother and Amazon, which are located outside of in the Commerce Corridor Terminal, but in very, very close proximity to the port. Those two customers have approximately 7,000 to 8,000 boxes a year that either are or will be coming through those facilities. And by having that back gate direct access to Commerce Corridor, removes all of that traffic from those intersections that were being described in the previous presentation. So what we're trying to do is work in partnership with the TPO, with the city, with VDOT, and all of our regional partners to try and create maximum efficiency and opportunity for the region with the transportation investments that you've given to us. Glad to answer any questions, and we can't wait for COVID to end so that perhaps we can get the TPO on a bus and, you know, not only take you to see what we're doing in Richmond, but perhaps bring you down here and see how Richmond in its 120 acres is a really important part of the significant investments that have been made in Hampton Roads. So thanks.
Thank you, Barb. I was actually going to ask if we could get a tour when COVID was over. So thank you for offering. I'm excited to check out the progress. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Not hearing any. Thank you so much for the presentation. The next presentation we have is from Barb Jaycox, and it's the Complete Streets Guidance and Toolbox.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, good.
We can, yeah.
And can you see my screen? Okay, good. I'm really happy to be here, and I will keep this very brief because I know you still have some things on your agenda. I just wanted to say thanks to Barb Nelson. It was great to hear that update. She was supposed to be one of our mobile workshops for the planning conference this week. So we are missing that right now, but we will certainly be back. I want to acknowledge staff that has worked on the Complete Streets story map. And really appreciate all that they have put into this so far. This is really just a kind of a work in progress, but Sarah Rosmus, Dan Motto, and Phil Riggin have put a lot into it so far, and we've gotten a lot of support from our localities. I'm just going to breeze through it. You've seen some of this in June. I think Phil shared it along with our bike ped overview. This is a very important component of our bike ped plan, which is in process, and we will be finishing that up in the spring as part of our LRTP update. But we do feel that the Complete Streets offer a great implementation mechanism for bike ped. One of the many ways we can start to implement our bike ped plan. So you've seen some of this, you know, what are Complete Streets, and showing in the rural as well as urban settings. We want this to be a useful resource to the region and to the localities. So we've incorporated a lot of the safety measures that are of concern and hopefully can be addressed through Complete Streets. This particular map shows the pedestrian deaths in red dots and injuries in black from 2013 to 19. And you can click on any one of these and start to see, oops, that doesn't work too well. Start to see details about the particular accident. One thing we're finding is that the lighting situation is responsible for 70% of the bike injuries or fatalities, and also for 80% of the pedestrian fatalities. They're either because of, you know, they happen at dusk, they're in dark light, natural light conditions, lighting is inoperable, or it's not even present, street or pedestrian lighting. So we're learning a lot from other localities. They've replaced some of their street lighting and pedestrian lighting with LED lighting, which has made a difference. You can start to see the trends in pedestrians that have been killed or injured. Fortunately, we are a little bit on the downswing in 2019. We're still looking at 2020, of course, with less traffic. We'd like to think that will produce safer conditions, but we're hearing anecdotally that speeds are picking up and therefore injuries are more serious. And we're hoping that does not prove to be the case in 2020. This is bike or cyclist deaths are in red and injuries in black from 2013 to 19. And you can see the cyclists killed by motor vehicle crashes is way on the upswing, which is very unfortunate. And that's something we really are trying to address through Complete Streets. We used Ashland. And this time last year, we were just finishing up our workshops. We had a series of workshops in Ashland and also at the Tuckahoe Library, where we invited the region in and got a lot of good input. There were good recommendations that came out of that study from Smart Growth America and Michael Baker. And we leave it with Ashland to use for their update in 2021 of their comprehensive plan. And so we looked at a lot of different challenges that are in Ashland, of course, with the more commercial corridors merging into the downtown walkable streets. And there were a series of recommendations, the things that Ashland and others need to be focused on. And I'll just breeze through all of this. This is available for your perusal. The Ashland has a development guideline handbook that can be updated along with their comprehensive plan. And of course, looking specifically at their commercial corridors and what exists along Route 1 and England Street. And the recommendations, talking about open streets. Of course, Ashland is starting to, they've made the COVID opportunity to share their street right-of-way with their sidewalk cafes. But we also share some examples from other locations, demonstration projects that could be put into place to really test how traffic circles could be made use of. And here's Ashland in current day, how they've closed off a portion of Railroad Avenue so that the dining can occur on the sidewalks and there's still safe passage for pedestrians. And then regionally, we are also finding there are really good applications of Complete Streets. The City of Richmond in particular, their Better Streets Manual is a really good resource for folks to be aware of. We have the link provided here. But you can see we make use of a lot of Complete Streets elements throughout the region already. And this whole section is really a way to celebrate that which we're already putting in place. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of that because I could see we're up to 10:20. I want to make sure that we have enough time for the full agenda here. But we are starting to put a regional toolkit together that will provide very specific guidelines for implementing these elements throughout the region. Use of angled parking so that you can actually have full visibility in your parking situation is used throughout the region in several locations. And of course, better mode separation, a whole lot of different, this is Jordan's branch in Henrico. Traffic circles are very, very well used throughout the city, bringing out the curbs so that there's a shorter distance for pedestrians to cross the street in Carytown. And a whole lot of bikeways, I think, are cropping up. And how do you measure the effectiveness of different types of bikeways? We've learned through repaving projects that opportunities to convert and reconfigure streets is also more readily available. As you can see here, Twin Hickory and then Turner Road most recently. This was the before, and now with a bike lane on either side of Turner with a center turning lane. And just many examples. We've provided resources that are readily available with links here. So this still is in process. We hope to be continually adding to it and bringing it to you maybe once or twice or once a quarter or maybe twice a year. We will have it is on our website and available. And as we continue on our bike ped planning efforts, I know we will be able to find more resources and more specifics working with each of you through that process. So be happy for questions or any input you might have after you have a chance to take a closer look at the toolbox. We would welcome your input. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Barb. I really appreciate that, and love the highlights of Ashland. And I think we all learned a lot and enjoyed the process on a local level, but also sharing that regionally. And I have a feeling that a lot of this information will be used and perhaps updated as we continue the Vision Zero work group.
Definitely.
Does anyone have any comments or questions for Barb or about the topic? Got a quiet group today.
Yeah, sure do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So our next item, I believe Mr. Parsons is going to give us an update on the MPO boundaries of rural jurisdictions. An email had gone out, I believe maybe last week about this.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you. This is item number 8 on your agenda. And there's a memo that was shared with the policy board for their October 1st meeting. I put that in the agenda packet so you would have some background. This precedes me. I had a request from Mr. Williams from Powhatan to research the opportunities to expand the TPO boundary to include the same geographic area that is currently considered by Plan RVA as well as the CBTA, which essentially includes our 4 rural jurisdictions, Goochland, Powhatan, Charles City, and New Kent. Right now, those communities are partially included, roughly half and half. And Mr. Williams wanted to find out what the rules were and if this was an opportunity to to match the boundaries, since the CBTA was just created using PDC 15 boundary. Is this a time when we can look at expanding the boundary for the TPO as well? So there's a number of factors to consider. I did have a chance to catch up with Dan Lisi. The last time this was discussed was 2014. Again, Mr. Williams was the chair at that point, and Dan provided a lot of great feedback to me on that effort. I was able to go back and find the old minutes and presentations, and I also had a chance to talk with Richard Duran from Federal Highways to see if there were any red flags on expanding the boundary, if that was the direction that the policy board wanted to go. So the factors that need to be considered are that the metropolitan planning area boundary can be expanded from time to time to adapt to the growth of the region. It's required to be evaluated following every decennial census. So census is this year, and we would expect to have census data available to aid in this effort in roughly 2 years. So we're calling it 2022. The expansion of the MPA to include all of Charles City, Goochland, New Kent, and Powhatan would present a number of considerations. One, it would be a match for the boundary of Plan RVA and the CBTA, and could increase public awareness and understanding, as well as transparency in all of these complicated factors that we all have to deal with every day. in terms of what the TPO is and what we represent. If you expanded the TPO boundary, those areas that are not currently included would be eligible to apply for RSTP and possibly CMAQ funding, depending on where you are. For those geographic areas that are either to the west or to the east of the current TPO boundary. I did have a chance to catch up with Daryl Johnson from VDOT, and if the boundary was expanded, the current rural transportation planning assistance from VDOT would become unavailable for the four rural jurisdictions. And it has been about $58,000 annually forever. I think that number has not changed in a long time. I was able to get some more information from Daryl, and I'll share that in a second. The staff's recommendation at the October 1st Policy Board was to refer it to you because we think it's good to follow procedures and have the TAC consider all of the technical aspects of this for consideration. They did act on that, and today it is being referred to you for consideration and response back to the Policy Board with guidance. They did not ask for any report in November. They said they would like something in December. So there doesn't need to be any action today, or this doesn't need to be rushed. We can put it back on the agenda for your November meeting for consideration and action. So the other thing to consider, there's also lots of background information, which I'm not gonna rush through right now, but that is there for your consideration, as well as the background slides from when Mr. Crum presented some of the information that was known at the time about expanding the area. This was back from 2014. The thing that does not change is that the southern boundary of Chesterfield, right now, Chesterfield County is in two different MPOs, ours as well as Tri-Cities, and those boundaries would not be changed if this action was considered, as far as we know. That may be something that the TAC would like to consider taking up, but that was not part of the discussion, at least at the October 1st Policy Board meeting. The other thing to note, in my discussion with Mr. Johnson from VDOT concerning the 58,000 planning assistance, there is an opportunity if, say, for example, Goochland and Powhatan decided to expand their boundaries to the west to cover the entire county area, so that you were able to apply for RSTP projects, for example. And then New Kent and Charles City decided to keep their boundaries where they are. That $58,000 would still be eligible in full to New Kent and Charles City. Say if Charles City was the only one that decided to keep their boundary where it was, all $58,000 would be eligible for Charles City to assist with rural transportation funding, project planning. So that's an interesting wrinkle in this discussion, is that there's no proportionality with the rural transportation funds from VDOT. As long as somebody still has rural areas in our MPO, then the rural transportation dollars are eligible in full for planning assistance. That does impact staff. The $58,000 right now helps to pay salaries and dedicate staff time to rural transportation planning assistance, so that we are able to act as an extension to your staff and provide specialized plans as needed, as requested, as we have done for years and years. So that's something to consider as well. I don't need to go through in more detail the rest of the agenda packet unless anyone has any particular questions about what was shared. I am considering the time we're at right now, Ms. Amos. So if anyone has any particular questions, we could certainly entertain that now. As I said, we'll put it back on the agenda for November to consider action.
I definitely think it's an important topic that deserves discussion. Is there anyone who would like to share anything now?
Madam Chair, this is Diana.
Go ahead, Dirona.
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions, Chad, in regard to this. I guess, what's the explanation for and this is more for the rurals, the TIP process and the STIP process? So they would kind of move from their usual, STIP process going into the MPO's TIP process, correct?
Well, I mean, part of each of the rural jurisdictions is already in that. So it would just expand the geographic area. I'm not sure the process itself would change, but maybe I'm not understanding your question.
Yeah, I was just saying, because I thought that localities, the portion thereof that are in MPOs or TPOs, when approving projects, they are agreed upon by the regional entity. And so then there lies the tip versus the rural submitting their projects directly to the state. And I don't know the distinction. It's a question.
That's a great question. I'm not sure if Jake would be able to answer that now, but we could certainly put that on the agenda with our discussion for November. And that could be something that we can do some research on. Great question.
Awesome. And then one more. What implication does it have on the on GRTC, if any?
I'm not sure. We could certainly add that to the list as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Those are great questions. Thank you, Dirona. And we don't have anything else to vote on, so if someone has to go, you can. But if people want to stay and continue this conversation, I'd be happy to do that. Go ahead, Sharon.
Thank you, Nora. This is Sharon with Henrico. Just had a few questions. So the census, or when do we need to do the study? Are we looking to do it in 2021? Or are we going to wait till 2022 to look at this MPA boundary change? Because we weren't sure whether, if we did it at the end of 2020 or 2021, if this was approved, would we use, what census data would we use? And then would we need to do it again in 2022 when it's up again? I guess it's the timing and what census data we'd use. I can try to reword that if that didn't make sense. I
think it makes sense, Sharon. Do you want to take it,
okay.
Chet?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that our understanding is that Mr. Williams has asked for it to be considered to be done now.
Okay.
And my assumption is we would use 2010 census data for that assessment. I think we are required to consider it after each census. So 2022, we would need to look at it again. I'm expecting there wouldn't be a whole lot of work done if we had just addressed it in 21. And that would be using the new census data.
Okay.
So I think from our message from the policy board is they would like to have a recommendation now for a change as soon as possible.
Okay, and then I had another question that answered that perfectly. Thank you, Chet. For RSTP, if the 4 rurals were added, so they're applicable. Their RSTP funds are available to them. But what about CMAQ? Where do the CMAQ boundaries impact the rurals? Would they be eligible for CMAQ funding?
They would, depending on the area. I know that a large portion, if not all, of Charles City is eligible for CMAQ funding. I would think that a portion of New Kent, but I don't have the map in front of me. I don't believe that Powhatan or Goochland are eligible, but we can certainly provide some more concrete answers other than guessing.
All right, thank you. That was it from me.
Great questions, thank you.
Nora, I have a
Joe?
couple questions, yes. So I would, this is not a question, this is probably more of a request, but I would like to hear from each one of the directly impacted localities as to what their position is with respect to this. If that could be included. And then secondly, back to the census data, how does the census data factor into a decision regarding the establishment of boundaries?
That's a great question, Joe. I mean, typically, the first there's a list of probably 6 or 8 different metrics that can be used to establish the planning area for an MPO. The one that is usually used is the urbanized area and what can be expected to be urbanized in the next 20 years. For us, that urbanized area is actually smaller than what the current MPO boundary is. So it doesn't really apply. The other thing that the census does is gives us the population numbers for the TPO assessment for dues. So that would change things, but that doesn't really play into the establishment of the boundary. So we're already, I don't think in 2022, we're going to see any changes in whatever decision is made now based on urbanized area. So that's not really the factor that goes into this. The reason that has been identified, at least in my discussions with Dan and with Federal Highways and talking with folks who were involved back then, was you can use the established economic development areas. I'm not sure that the terminology, district maybe, which would coincide with the Plan RVA study area and the PDC 15, and that could inform what the MPO study area is. That's the kind of the line in the code that would replace using the urbanized area as the boundary. And that's in all the attached stuff in the packet, if you wanted to read about that more.
Okay, thank you. That was a great response and very helpful. But again, back to my previous, I would really like to see some information included from the affected localities as to really specifically what would be their position on this and why. Thank you, Nora.
Thank you, Joe. And I guess to highlight on that in their position, what is the benefit of doing it now as opposed to waiting till 2022? I understand that would get them one extra RSTP round next year as opposed to wait until the following year. But any other comments or input?
Hey Nora, this is Andrew. I have one quick question.
Go ahead, Andrew. We are having a hard time hearing you though. Try again.
Is that any better?
That's great. Go ahead.
If we wanted to get something from our planning commission and board that indicated our support or not support for expanding the boundary, when would you need that by, Chet, to be included in the packet for the next TAC meeting?
A week ahead of time.
Okay.
I mean, if it's essentially a memo, I'm not sure how much time this committee needs to review it, so we can include it later even.
Okay.
If that would be all right with the board.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, anyone else? I'm gonna have to get all y'all on video for one of these meetings. It's a lot easier. Okay, I'm not hearing any. Chet, do you want us to send you anything on this if we have comments over the next month, or we'll just wait till November?
I have made a list of the requests that have been made this morning, so I will confer with Nicole and make sure we know everything, and then probably send out a follow-up email to the TAC with a request for the different information.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. So the next item we have are transportation agency updates. Liz McAdory, you're first.
I believe it's Jake this morning.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jake. Go ahead.
No worries. Yeah, I'll be covering for Liz for today. Just a quick update. CTB met in September. They had action on location approval for the Woolridge Road extension. They reviewed the FY 21 and 22 TAP projects, and 16 were selected for funding in the Richmond district, and we anticipate those to be approved in the October meeting. The October meetings are going to be hosted by the Richmond district, but it will be virtual. It's October 20th. There's going to be a workshop at 10 a.m. And then the 21st, they're going to have their action meeting at 9 a.m. And currently, there's no other November meeting scheduled. Right now, the major work effort for the district is Smart Scale. We're deep into validation, about to enter into scoring. If you receive any emails from the Smart Scale portal, go ahead and do whatever it asks so we can move this process along. We're expecting completion in December 2020 and CTB approval in 21. If you have any questions, reach out to me this week, but next week Liz will be back, so you can reach out to either of us. There's no updates on the 6-year improvement plan development. All studies are on schedule, the 95, 85, 64, and 295. We have public meetings planned for late 20 and early 21. Each study are going to have operational and capital improvement recommendations presented to the CTB. There's no upcoming public hearings that we have currently on the schedule, and that's just a quick update.
Thank you. I believe we still have Tiffany Dubinsky for DRPT.
Excuse me, Nora.
Yes, sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
Yes, so I have a question for Jake. Hey, Jake.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Jake, do you have an update on when the decisions on revenue sharing applications are going to be made? I can't remember when they were submitted, but it was some time ago. I want to say greater than 6 months ago.
I do not know that off the top of my head. I'll have to look that up for you.
Okay, thank you.
I can shoot you an email. Yeah.
That would be great. Thank you.
Sorry, did anyone else have any questions for Jake? Okay. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Thanks, Nora. So I have a very brief agency update for everyone today. As I've been saying for the past few months related to our SIP, we are currently in a holding pattern, kind of waiting for the state budget and a couple other things to fall into place. So at our September CTB meeting, we did present on some items to be added to the current SIP. That included the second quarter transit operating assistance, commuter assistance operating for the second quarter, and then the Section 5310 human service agency capital assistance. Depending on kind of what's falling into place, we're hoping that there's some further action I'll be able to report on after the October CTB meeting, but we are still working through our draft 21 SIP at this time. Related to the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority, we are still working on setting up the board or the authority, as well as starting a kickoff meeting. Press release was issued out September 18th with a list of board members, and those include those listed members in the Richmond region there. I've butchered their names enough times, so I will probably spare everyone on that. I've also been mentioning about progress on the CSX deal. I believe that as part of our future meeting topics, we will have someone from our rail division present on Long Bridge, and I will be sure that they will cover any details about CSX if there's interest on that. But the hope is that once that deal is done, we'll be able to move forward and increase service from Richmond to DC. Last item on our agency update is with Amtrak. They started as of September 7th, increasing rail service to about 80% pre-pandemic levels. The main thing for most of us in terms of interest is that we don't anticipate seeing any additional service through Richmond until early 2021. The last item I have, I didn't really put this on the agency update, but I had in the past been updating on the Virginia Breeze. And so now that there is a route that does serve Richmond, if there is interest, I could provide some ridership information on how that route is performing. In particular, a lot of people have been taking, I always mess up the names, but the route that serves between Richmond to DC as a connector, especially because there's a stop in Fredericksburg. And I think a lot of people remember kind of that Fredericksburg Richmond Express that used to run through. So we've seen a lot of actual passengers utilize that route for that service on a daily basis. So if there is some interest, I'd be glad to provide some ridership information on that Virginia Breeze service line. And that will be it for my agency update. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, this is Diana with the City of Richmond.
Go ahead, Diana.
Tiffany, I just have one quick question. Do you know if the CTB is meeting tomorrow?
I actually do not know. All I know is about what Jake had presented, which was the 20th and 21st.
Okay. Thank you.
Would you like me to find out, perhaps?
Yes, please email me.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Tiffany, if you don't mind, could you add to your reports? It doesn't have to be every month, but when there perhaps is an update, something on the DC to RVA, whether it be Long Bridge or just kind of an update of where it is. It doesn't have to be what's happening in our region, but just along the corridor.
I'd be glad to do that. I'll go ahead and make sure to do that for the next update.
Thank you. So the next item, number 10 on our agenda, is the public comment period. It's for open public comment. I don't see any comments in the chat. Is there anyone here who would like to provide a public comment? Or Chet, do you have anything from anyone?
We did not have anything in advance of the meeting in terms of submitted emails.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, this is John O'Keefe with Ride Finders.
Go ahead, John.
I did have a statement from Vaughn Tisdale that she had asked me to report on to the TAC if I could.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. She had said Ride Finders is greatly appreciative of the funding provided by the RRTPO for its Cash for Carpools initiative project that was scheduled for the launch of this year. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 and its widespread impact on business operations, with many employees working remotely from home and in the interest of public safety and health, Ride Finders has postponed the launch and execution of this initiative project that would have encouraged and supported commuters to carpool until further notice. This decision was reached after the internal staff discussion and in agreement with Ride Finders grant administrators. We will continue to keep our eyes on the market, communicate with DRPT and our advisory groups for input in the next steps. We just wanted to make you all aware of this. And if anybody needs a copy of this for anything, please let me know and I'd be glad to provide that.
If you
And
could
thank
just
you
go
all
ahead
again.
and send that. Thank you, John. If you could send that to Ms. Mueller so she'll have it for the minutes, I would appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'll do that this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. So number 11 is future meeting topics. I'm not going to go through them. They're on page 29 in your packet. If you have any additional topics you'd like added, just send those to Chet. Do we have any TAC member comments that you'd like to share with the group? Not hearing it. I will just say back to my original comment about the trolley line trail, Ashland to Petersburg, whatever we're going to call it. I wanted to make sure everyone knew that it's part of the East Coast Greenway, which is a 3,000-mile greenway from Maine to Florida. So at least the Ashland portion of about 3.5 miles has been designated as part of the East Coast Greenway. And ideally, the entire trail will be at some point. Any other comments? Last chance. Okay, our next meeting is November 10th. If I don't see or hear anyone, I will adjourn the meeting, and thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Nora.